Magic 8 Ball. Is this going to be a good video? It says yes. Hi, I'm Grace. Welcome to my channel. I read, I write, I talk about books. That's what we do here. And I plan to do that even more in the new year. Happy 2025. That does not sound like a real year, does it? I feel like I'm not really the type of person that likes to do the new year, new me. Or at least I say that I'm not that type of person. But I think deep down I am. I love a new year. I also get very anxious around the new year. So I don't know what that's about. Please excuse any weird thuds that you hear. I have very loud neighbors. I feel like as the year ends, I feel sort of pessimistic, especially with this upcoming year. There's not a lot of good things to look forward to, especially if you live in the United States, really, especially if you live anywhere. But that still doesn't stop me somehow from being a little optimistic when a new year presents itself. I always see January as this very strange time where I feel like really, really happy and excited, but also nervous and scared. And this year in particular is very special, I guess you could say, because it is the last year of my 20s. I'm turning 29 in a few weeks, and boy, do I feel some things about that. I'm not going to go on this rant about how, oh, I'm so old now. 30 is not old, 29 is not old. But I think it's only natural for a person exiting their 20s to feel a little anxious when suddenly faced with that reality. But at the same time, it feels like now more than ever is the perfect opportunity for me to reach out and grab the things that I want in life. 2024 was not a good year for me personally. A lot of good things did happen, of course. I started this YouTube channel, and so far it's been a really fun project to work on. I started writing more seriously. I started reading more seriously. I surpassed a reading goal for the first time in my life, but we'll get to reading goals in a second. I have more to say about those. But there were a lot of things that were not so great about last year. And unfortunately, much of the time, they sort of outweigh the good things in my brain. As much as I would love to be hopeful about everything all the time, that's just not how it is, right? I'm choosing to be hopeful now, facing 2025. We're going to put everything 2024 back there, and we're not going to look back there. I got this little mini Magic 8 Ball for Christmas, and it's actually one of my favorite gifts that I received because I'm letting it run my life, and it's great. Magic 8 Ball is 2025 going to be our year. Ask again. Maybe I'll ask again later. So I thought I would start by doing what I see a lot of people doing. It's a lot of the content that I've been consuming over the past couple of weeks, and that is like best and worst books. But I'm just going to say my best book and my worst book. We'll start at the bottom. Worst is a tie between two audiobooks I listened to. I talked about these in my best and worst books of 2024 so far, but those books are Zori by, I believe the author was Laird Hunt. The other one is My Name is Lucy Barton by Elizabeth Strout. I felt sort of the same about them after finishing them. They both just sort of disappointed me. I guess if I had to choose one as the worst, it would probably be Zori, because I think I did find that one slightly less entertaining and I didn't like the writing style as much. Although I was not really a fan of Elizabeth Strout's writing style in Lucy Barton. I know a lot of people really like Elizabeth Strout's books, so I'm not opposed to giving her another chance. This year was the year that I read a lot of audiobooks, and I'm going to get to that when I talk more about like my reading goals and stuff. But I was never really used to like listening to audiobooks, so I do wonder if that affected my feelings towards it. But also, I don't think so, because I listened to a few audiobooks this year that I really enjoyed. I don't think it was because it was something that I like wasn't used to. I think I just didn't like it. I feel like maybe I had hyped it up in my brain because I knew people liked this author. Then it just let me down. I don't know. On to the best book that I read in 2024. I believe this was probably the one that I picked in my mid-year freak-out thing that I did, but that is Catcher in the Rye. I know that this book is very polarizing. I loved it. I said this in a previous video, but I definitely get why people don't like it, but at the same time, I don't get it. It is so good to me. It frustrates me to read the 1-star reviews of this book. Don't get me wrong, I have read books where the main character was annoying. That's sort of how I felt about My Name is Lucy Barton, for example. But I like to understand the difference between a bad character and a bad person. Would I hang out with Holden Caulfield in person? Absolutely not. He is a jerk. But does he make for a good character to analyze? And is he kind of entertaining sometimes because he's just so, bad? Yes. Also, J.D. Salinger does a great job at making me sort of sympathize with a jerk. And I think if you can do that, then you have mastered the characterization and you are an excellent writer. It's sort of like when people read Lolita and then they give it 1 star. I haven't read Lolita, by the way. That is a book I want to read this year. They give it 1 star because obviously the main character is like evil. He's scum. But that's kind of the point. He's not a good person, but his character makes for an interesting read and an interesting analysis. Maybe I'll do a different video about The Catcher in the Rye, but more specifically, how to point out a bad character versus a bad person. Does that make sense? Magic 8 Ball. Is Catcher in the Rye a good book? Psych. I don't need it to tell me that, because I know it is. Okay, so those are my best and my worst books of 2024. Now let's talk about 2025. Actually, just kidding, I'm not done talking about 2024 because I want to talk about how I succeeded in reaching my reading goal, but I also failed in my reading goals. Let me explain. So I had a goal at the beginning of 2024 to read, I believe it was 35 books. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I have recently, this past year, been trying to get more into reading. And in that regard, I succeeded. I read over 35 books, so I am very proud of myself. But here's the thing. Do I think that I reached my goal in a way that feels good to me? No, I don't think that I did. At the beginning of this year, I was really hyped for reading. I wanted to consume as many books as possible. I wanted to reach my goal as fast as possible. And so I started to maybe over-consume a little bit. And maybe it's not really possible to over-consume books. Like, consuming books in general is a good thing. I think I was consuming books in a way that wasn't helping me get anything from it. I found out about the Libby app earlier this year, and I was reading audiobook after audiobook after audiobook, which was great. But it got to the point where I was choosing books just because they were available. Sometimes I would find a gem and it would be something that I had been wanting to read. Then a lot of times in between, I was just picking up random books. I wasn't retaining anything from the books. I also just wasn't picking books that fulfilled me in any way. And that's just really how I like to read. It doesn't matter what genre of book it is. If it seems like it will be meaningful to me, I want to read it. I also realized that maybe my attention span just wasn't meant for audiobooks, even though I listened to so many of them, and some of them were really good and they were in my favorites of the year. If a book didn't really grab me, I could still listen to it, but then sort of check out. And then I would check them off the list when I read them. But now, in January, I was looking back at the list of audiobooks that I listened to. Some of them I didn't even remember. That's just not how I want to look back on my reading list. A couple of months ago, I made a video titled My Fall TBR. This was the first time I had ever made a TBR, because previously my TBR is just any book that I buy or pick up. I file it away. It's in my TBR now. I will read this one day. I wanted to try to do an actual TBR. And I will admit, it's because I was starting a YouTube channel and it was content. It was something to make and show to you all. But I'm embarrassed to say I read 1.5 books from my fall TBR. It's January. It's winter now. It's a new year. And I only read one of those books, which was really good, and I'm so glad I read it. And I'm still reading this Stephen Sondheim book that I talked about previously in other videos, but none of the other books on that list got touched. And granted, a lot happened in my life after I made that video, and I kind of knew that those books were not going to get read. I mean, I had a little life on that list. I had too many books on that list, and I think I even said in that video that this was a realistic list for me. I was lying. That is not a realistic list for me because I don't ever do TBRs. I don't know what a realistic list for me is, but I knew I was not going to read Frankenstein, A Little Life, the short story collection, the Stephen Sondheim book. I think I said I wanted to reread The Bell Jar. I don't even remember the books that I put on that list. Now we can talk about 2025. This year, I don't really want to do TBRs, at least not in a very strict way like that. If you're like me, if I set a goal in my head, even if I know I will not achieve that goal, I will want to, and I will feel bad about not achieving it. So I've decided to just not do that to myself. It's that easy. I'm just now learning that if you don't want to make yourself suffer, don't make yourself suffer. So I asked my Magic 8 Ball if I should make TBR lists, and it said no. I didn't actually do that, but this is a decision that I'm going to make for myself. I want to have a more loose goal of I want that book to be read by me by the end of the year. And I think that is actually a more realistic goal for myself. I think it'll be kind of fun to sort of surprise myself and see what I read. I think I'm done rambling. Magic 8 Ball. Am I done rambling? For sure. Okay, well, you heard it from the Magic 8 Ball, folks. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I'm still writing and I want to do more writing vlogs. those will probably be the things that I focus on the most on this channel in the upcoming year. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope that you subscribe, that you join me here, and that I can ramble to you some more. Goodbye.